Welcome to the Planner Pals podcast, hosted by your two true Planner Pals. I am Jess or Jashi Corinne.
And my name is Mark, and I go by Mark Your Pages. And we are back in full force with the Planner Pals podcast. Today's episode is going to be a Go Wild Part 2, but specifically we're going to be talking today about, is Go Wild worth it? Now, we're going to be talking about this both from the monetary standpoint, because that's a really big part of this, but also from the experience standpoint. Jess being a person who has gone to Go Wild twice, and me, this is my first official time going, and we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to kind of run through the whole program, talk about each of the days. I'm going to share my experiences, Jess sharing hers as a second goer. It's going to be, I'm assuming, Jess, right? Very different from the DC one that you went to, right?
It was actually kind of impressive how different the experience was. Going into it, knowing a little bit more about how it operates and stuff, I kind of had slightly different expectations, but we'll get into whether they were filled or not. I think that the easiest part really to consider first would be the cost, because it's, something that has just a number attached to it. So I, before this podcast recording, made the foolish decision to actually count up how much I spent to Go Wild. And it was like $3,943.
Whoa, my goodness.
I did myself a disservice doing that calculation, because in New Zealand dollars, for comparison, like for in my money, that's 6,690, and I was just like, that's a shit ton of sushi that I could have bought, but that's fine. But that includes like the ticket and the flights and all of the accommodation stay and everything else, though, so it's not just like the ticket for Go Wild.
Yeah, and you're not also just traveling a few states. I mean, you're internationally traveling for something like this. And I mean, that price right there is a vacation, right? That's a vacation to another country or to a resort or something like that, which technically is exactly what you did, right? A different country. Again, did you get to lay out on a beach and do all of that? Not necessarily, but you got to hang out with all your cool friends and go to this big planner conference in the United States. But it still seems like a lot of money for that, because I think mine definitely is a lot different than yours.
Because like yours is obviously a different situation. Like you're there with Zebra, like to be part of the actual event. But in terms of like your expenditure, you don't need to put the exact price on it, but how much ballpark do you think was your kind of cost for the experience?
I would maybe say $300 or so. And that's just food. That's transportation. Zebra was like, we're sponsoring you, so like all the things, but I already felt very guilty about the ticket, the hotel, the flight. Like they took care of all of that. And like I said, it kind of made me feel a bit disconnected from the experience, because I didn't have to worry about those things. So anytime that I was purchasing something, food or whatever, I was just paying for that myself. So that, and then also, I purchased a lot of stuff from the planner fair, checking out some of the other vendors and things like that I wouldn't usually buy. I don't feel like I would online. And then, like I said, just really food and drink and rides. So it was kind of just about it. So it's definitely, pales in comparison. But like you said, it also was a very different situation, because mine likely probably would have been in upwards, probably like $1,500 or $2,000 for the whole trip for me, if I would have had to pay for the ticket and all of that. So being sponsored by Zebra definitely has its benefits to it, for sure. So it's very different. I don't know. I still feel very embarrassed about that, even though I should be very like proud that I got to do something like that. Just, it feels like, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, again, because I'm very happy about it, because it was an amazing experience. But then I'm like, just literally just said she spent $6,000 of her own money to go to this. And I was like, hey, I'll get the Uber to your meetup.
No, you should have seen Vogel's face when I was telling him about it. He's just like, oh no. I'm like, sorry, bro. I'm sure we'll go to Rotorua later this year, because that's where he wants to go, but that's like in New Zealand, so it's going to cost like nothing.
Yeah.
But like we said, it's not just the monetary cost, of course. Like there's the kind of the emotional experience that you get to have along with it, which obviously counts for a lot more. So getting into it though, Mark, where did things kind of kick off? Where do you think we should start?
So let's go ahead and start with the hotel, because I don't think there was any major travel issues going there. I had some coming back. What about you, Jess? Was everything smooth sailing for you for the most part?
Yeah, I was actually so nervous because this is my first like big international trip that I've kind of done by myself. So that was already a little bit nerve-wracking. And I only had a really short stay over in Auckland where it's like, you transition between the domestic terminal to the international and I'm like, "Oh gosh, so I need to like grab my bags and then transition to my new plane and get there and get to my gate." And so I was having like a small freak out, but the people at the check-in desk were very reassuring. "No, your bags are going to go all the way through. You just have to get yourself from one terminal to the other. You have plenty of time for that." So it was all good in the end, even if I was very, very worried about it.
A lot of the things that happened on this trip, not getting there but coming home, were literally my travel nightmares. Two things happened specifically that were my nightmares. I'll talk about that at the end, but let's get into like the big exciting part, which is arriving at what might have been one of the largest hotels I've ever been to in my entire life, which was the Lowe's Arlington. From the outside, it just looked like a regular hotel, but I swear it was like 8 times as big on the inside for some reason. Like everything was so tall.
Yeah, I know, right? It just like you walk into the kind of main entrance and just like, I know it sounds really silly to say, but like where the ceiling was compared to me, and I'm already short, so everything's tall for me. But I was just like, oh my gosh, I think this is the biggest building I've ever been in, or like one of the grandest, at least for a hotel, because usually when I stay in a hotel, I'm not saying that I stay in like non upmarket places, but this felt very swish. It was really nice.
Yeah, it was very swish. I've never heard of that term before, but I know exactly what you mean. It was, I feel like every floor was at least 2 or 3 floors as one. And even when we talk about like the ballroom where a lot of the things happen, I was actually looking around and I was like, where are the supports for the middle of this? Like everything was just so grand. It was absolutely insane. But like you said, very swish, very beautiful. You kind of walked in and it was like you had like a whole bar area on one side, a beautiful little bodega right in the middle to get all your food, which I spent so much time inside of throughout the entire trip. It was so easy to grab food there. And then elevators that only took you to certain parts of the building depending on what side you were on, which I'm just thankful for the, concierge that showed me like, here's your elevator and here's how you get to your room. And that's all I needed to know.
I know, right? I like getting to the desk and checking in after my like 26 hours of travel or whatever. And the lady's like, "Okay, and so you're in this floor and you need to go to this elevator and stuff." And I'm just like, like, I'm sorry, I know you just said a bunch of words, but I was so out of it. Thankfully, I had some other people there to greet me to tell me where I needed to go, because otherwise I certainly would have gone to the wrong elevator.
It was pretty amazing. And you kind of knew that you were in the right spot because even before the conference started, people were already gathering in the lobby. Everybody was already wearing their badges. You kind of knew your audience as soon as you walked in. But there was also other conferences happening there too, like other groups of people that were kind of walking around. Like at one point, there's just this like very large group of guys. And I was like, wait a second, are they here for Go Wild? They were not there for Go Wild.
Yeah, no, certainly not. The shirts kind of gave them away because they're all like in grey shirts and we're like looking very like IT formal, if that's like a style or whatever.
Yeah, tucked in polo shirts with jeans, that's essentially IT formal.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. But whereas our Go Wild people were very much, in their full color, their rainbows and all of that. So they made them a little bit easier to spot. I always love when you're like, got people coming in on the first day or whatever, rolling in with their luggage, and the people who have like their leopard print suitcases. I'm like, oh my God, I want one.
Yeah, that's the one thing I can definitely say is that people really do go all out for Go Wild. The dress code, I was nervous about it, especially for speaking, which we'll talk about with the crop later on. And I was like, what do I wear? What's appropriate? And everyone's like, Mark, people roll up in the wildest outfits. You could just wear whatever you want. You'll be fine. But I didn't know like what was proper attire for Go Wild. Now I know, which is anything goes. And the crazier, the wilder, the better.
Yeah, there are certainly some very loud characteristics when it comes to people's clothing, and it's always it's like a vibe. It's just beautiful to see. When we get to things like the Planjama party and all of that, which of course talk about that later, but seeing everybody get really kind of decked out and dressed up and really into it, it's just something kind of special.
Yeah, it definitely was. So, you get into the hotel, you finally get to your room. There was a handful of people that were gathering around. It definitely was late. I know you got there even later. We're like, let Jess sleep. She's had a long trip. But everyone was prepping up for the next day, which you prepared before. But even everything you prepared before did not prepare me for the experience that happened on the very first day, which was just check-in. I don't know, in my mind, my days were like all mixed up. I was like, day one, Thursday, party's going, hit the floor running. And it was like, let's just line up. Let's get our badges. Let's get our free tote and t-shirt, and let's go to the planner fair. But the line to start the day, which you told me people camp out. And I'm thinking, okay, line some people. No, I think everybody camped out the night before, because by the time we got there, the line was insane.
Yeah, I know, right? And it was only day one. Like, we were on a floor above the actual registration area, and the line literally went from the registration area, out the door, around the corner, back inside, up the stairs, around another corner, and that's where we were.
Yeah, that's where we were. I mean, I definitely was thrown back a little bit when we stood on our line, and they were like, okay, come this way. And then suddenly we're outside of the building, and I'm joking, of course. I'm like, you're kicking me out already? Like, we just got this thing started. The best part for me, this was the moment, and we talked about this a lot during the trip. A lot of people, and I'm so grateful for it, like, that were like calling out our names, like coming to meet us. There was a handful of people that we saw, people tagging us on Instagram of like these candid shots. And I'm like, wait, where even was that? Where were we? And thank God I wasn't making like a horrible face the entire time.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, gosh. I always find my side view is not my best. Not that I have a great angle, but that's not the great angle. And I'm like, please come find me so we can get a proper picture.
Yeah, and that's something I didn't really say I didn't expect. It was one of those things where I knew that some people obviously were aware of me from the planner community, and a lot of people that were reached out and super supportive of the crop and everything else. But it is the weirdest thing, and like I said, we talked about this, when people come up to you and like, "Can I get a picture with you?" And I'm like, "Are you talking to somebody behind me that's much more popular and has a bigger following than me?" But they're like, no, you, like, I can't believe like I'm meeting you. And especially with both of us together, they were like, my two favorite people are here. And I was like, this is really cool, but this is really weird. Will I ever get used to it? I don't know.
I don't think you will. I don't think I'll ever get used to it either. And it's like, when you have somebody who's kind of like looking at you from across the way, kind of like, is this person familiar, or like, oh, do I go say hi or whatever? And it's like, I never like to assume. I always just like to assume that there's somebody, again, behind me or whatever, that like you actually know, and I shouldn't be the person that you're staring at here. But I'm like, just always come up, always come say hi. Don't feel awkward about it, because I'd much rather you do that than make the eyes at me, and then I have to like, do I make the eyes back? Like, what do we do here?
Yeah, I have to be careful who I'm making eyes at as well. You never know how that could come across. You've got, one of maybe 10 guys at a planner conference. But we were lucky that other people were also kind of looking out for us, because we were hanging out with Haley and Natasha from Archer and Olive the whole time that we were in line. And they were the ones that were like, I think those people are looking at you. And we were like, no, they're not. And then, I looked over and they were like waving. And I was like, oh, they were looking at us. Like, this was cool. And just like walk over and like say hey and, just talk to people. It was pretty amazing. So the line alone was very exciting. And also, can I tell you, the number of people that were like, I love this podcast that you two are doing. And I was like, oh, that's how you heard about us? Like, a lot of people mentioned that. And that to me was so validating. It's actually what made me buy this new mic, because I thought, we're going to invest in this podcast and this is really going to be amazing. No, but it was so cool to have people say that, because I feel like, what are we, 7 episodes in and people are like binging the podcast and loving it? It was an awesome feeling.
Well, there's certainly going to be increasing amounts of content for them to binge as well, because I swear every one of our episodes seems to get longer. So it was, again, like you said, though, very validating that people are so excited to have this podcast and all of that. I mean, it's exciting for us, but it feels really good to hear it from other people as well. So that was kind of special.
Yeah, it was cool. And then going around, getting your tickets, kind of going in. So the planner fair is, again, something that you warned me about and saying like, it's a big room. I can say that I kind of experienced that when I came to the DC one, because that's where I met a lot of you in that big room, but it wasn't filled. So I think for me, I was like, oh, this is like kind of just a gather space. No, planner fair was insane. And I didn't really make it very far in the door, because I don't usually have like a lot of anxiety around things. Like, I'm pretty easygoing, but just the number of people, how loud it was in there. Not even like, it wasn't like they were blasting music or anything. They were just simply just that many people. There was events going on. There was like balloons flying around. There was people in like bathing suits. I think they were like a dress thing. They were doing something in there, but like
There were people in bathing suits. You need to elaborate on that. People did not show up in their togs. Like,
no, it was like showgirl outfits, I would call it, right? And like the Go Wild colors. I don't know what it was. I didn't want to like stare. Very cool though. Again, just a lot of characters, a lot of stuff going on, and so much swag that was just instantly being handed to you. It was just like, welcome, here's a bag, here's another bag, here's stickers, here's this. And, you know, you're just like loading things up as you're going through with it. So it was a lot. So I only made it about that far. I said hello to all the Zebra crew because we were going to do the meet and greet in a little bit. But other than that, I just kind of stopped there to begin with until later on. What was your experience kind of going into this? Because like you said, this felt more grand, right, than the DC one.
well, yeah, like even just coming back to the ceiling again, like, which seems silly, but it feels like it kind of fits the vibe. Like, just the amount of vertical space you have in the room makes it feel a lot bigger, but also the general floor area was a lot bigger too. I don't necessarily know if we had more stalls than last time, but it certainly took up more floor space, so it felt a lot bigger. Also, when I went last time, I did not hit it up at the start time because I was asleep and then went to brunch. So this time around, actually getting in kind of at the start of things and having that many more people around, it felt very kind of like electric, very exciting, high energy type thing. It was very special. But like you said, like getting all the swag bits and getting to meet the people and just having like everything going like from the get-go, very exciting.
Yeah, it was really cool for me too going around. So right where the Zebra booth was, it was a pretty large space there. Then right next to them, Amanda Rach Lee was there with her ARL shop. And that was really cool. And I'm sure creepy vibes because you're looking at somebody that you've watched on YouTube for years, absolute years. And for me, I think about all the great stuff that she's done. She's done a lot of stuff with YouTube specifically. Like she really is in my mind, like that celebrity status person that you would say, can I get a picture with you? Or, cry when you see, or something like that. Right. Like that. I didn't do that because I want to be weird, but
He's lying. He cried.
that would be so awkward to be like, hi, I am an older gentleman crying at you that I watch on YouTube. You are half my age.
That would have been such a hoot to watch though.
It probably would have been pretty weird. And then I would have been escorted out for real this time. She would have been like snapping her fingers. Security would have taken me out.
He was like, sir, please leave.
Yeah. But it was cool, like just meeting her and seeing that. And then there was just a lot of positivity. I think that's the big thing too. I can take away from this entire conference was just the amount of positivity that is just like exploding from everybody. Even when you're walking around, I don't know who was the booth that had like the balloon igloo.
I think that was Chrissy Ann Designs. I'm sure somebody will tell me that I'm wrong, but I think that's who it was. Because last year, Chrissy Ann Designs one was like corner piece that was like staged so you could take photos with like the sticker books that she makes, but like really big. I got a picture with that one. That's like my current display picture, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, this time around, she had that big balloon igloo, which people could go stand in, and then it had like the fans going, so the balloons are all tossing around, so it very much looked like a snow globe type thing.
A snow globe. That's probably a better word for it than what I'm thinking of. But so overall, very cool. The lines again were crazy because you could also buy stuff there too. So like for me, I went to like the Pipstick counter. I don't know what to call it, but the reason I went there is because she had a bunch of stickers that were like super discounted, and it was so funny because I grabbed the ones. There's probably a handful that like would fit my aesthetic, and I just remember going up and paying for them, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're buying these. These are so old," and I was like, "Well, that's my aesthetic. Like I don't like this overly decorative stuff, so I got some stickers that look like coffee pots." But the buying stuff was very cool because everything was super discounted also just for the event, so it definitely was a place to go if you wanted to buy stuff. But then like I said again, you were just getting free stuff thrown at you constantly.
It was also just really exciting to see Pipsticks there as well, because I feel like they've been around for a while, right? But they're kind of like getting bigger now rather than when they were first kind of around. I mean, that's the same for everybody, duh, but it feels like they've been around for a while, but now is like their like time to shine, because we didn't have Pipsticks at the Planner Fair last year. I don't think that they might have sponsored a table, I'm not sure, but don't at me. But it was really nice to see them there and also have them in the welcome box as well, because some of us who live internationally had to pick up our welcome boxes there. So it's like, oh yay, even more swag that everybody already has. But still, it's exciting.
Yeah, there is so much stuff that was there from the different vendors, and it is really cool too. Again, you see people like that are kind of the face of the company, and then meeting them in real life. That's kind of also the reoccurring theme, is that you always see the people online, and they do look or appear like, oh gosh, I would never message that person. They would never talk to me because they're a part of this mega company. But then you just realize, just like Us magazine says, like, they're just like us. They're planner people, they're planner pals, they love stationery and having fun. And again, I think everybody just had such a great time.
Yeah, I do wish that I got around to all of the stalls that we had, because I, like, essentially coming into Planner Fair, instantly found somebody who had grabbed my table mate gifts for me,
Oh,
because table mate gifts, I didn't want to send them to New Zealand because then I'd have to lug them all the way back to the States. So they very kindly offered to pick them up for me. So I'm like, okay, I have to grab them from you, and then I need to go drop them in my room. And of course, because the hotel was so big, it was like half a mile from the, maybe even a full mile from the Planner Fair back to the elevator to get up to my room. I might be exaggerating, but it felt like it was that long.
no, you aren't exaggerating at all. At one point, I tried to go to the bathroom and I walked around the floor twice, which again was probably about 2 miles, to only find out that there wasn't a bathroom on that level. You had to go down a level to find the bathroom. I was like, and more walking. So yeah, it was definitely get your steps in.
Yeah, certainly got my steps in, because yeah, just trekking between the different places that we were doing certain things, that was a bit of a mission. But it like fits the vibe of everything's bigger in Texas, right? That's like supposed to be the slogan for the
Yep.
space. But I think that getting around the Planner Fair and getting to see all of the stalls, I would have liked to have maybe had a little bit more time there. But we had other things to do. We had other places to be.
We did. And I just want to thank everyone who came and hung out with me for a few minutes during the meet and greet with Zebra. So that was definitely a highlight of mine. I wasn't expecting a long line. Let's just put it this way. My favorite part is there was a volunteer, and they're like, okay, this is your volunteer. They're just going to do line management for you. And that way you don't have to worry about it. I looked at her. I was like, you're not going to have to do a lot of work. I don't think a lot of people know who I am. But it was still nice that people were coming up, and I took your advice and I made the little cards, little giveaway cards. Now, I didn't know how to make them into stickers, as so many people did for those tradie gifts. So I just put a QR code on mine, and that had a bunch of freebies on there that people could print out. So that's where I feel like I gave out the most. But it was nice talking to people. It was wonderful having people come up to us. There was one person I was half kind of prodding a little bit when I said, someone you would cry over a meeting. There was someone that we met that was just so excited to meet both of us, because you were kind enough to also come and hang out with me too. They were just very excited to meet us. They were just big fans, and that is, again, it's just a feeling that you're just like, I don't feel worthy of this type of excitement, but it was incredibly cool.
I know, right? I'm not worth your tears. She's like, oh my god, it's so embarrassing that I'm crying. I'm like, would it be better if I cried too? Like, I could do that. We could stand here and cry together if you want.
And it wouldn't be out of place. I feel like a lot of people get emotional, but like happy tears all the time at things like this.
Yeah, lots of tears. I feel like less tears this year than in DC, which I was kind of appreciative for, because I always find like certain types of crying weird. That one I was just like, I totally understand, because I am exactly that way. Like one time when I met a celebrity that probably nobody knows, her name's Becca Runger. She sung a song called Sway. It's a big deal, whatever. But I met her in a bar, and I feel like I was probably a little intoxicated, because you're in a bar, of course you are.
Yeah.
And I just didn't believe her when she said who she was. I'm like, you're lying. No, seriously, no, you're lying, kind of thing. And then like the entire trip home, I was just in a daze, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Did I meet them? Did I really meet them? Were they catfishing me? I don't know.
Figment of my imagination.
So after my meetup, we went to yours. And let me just tell you how much more impressive I feel like yours was, because not only did people come from the planner conference, there was people that came to your meetup, Jess, who weren't even attending the conference, just lived somewhat in the area and came to hang out, which was incredibly cool.
Yeah, I think it's always really special getting to meet people in person when you've only really interacted with them online, but actually having people who are like, oh yeah, I traveled like an hour and a half to be here. I'm like, oh my gosh, not worth, but thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and see us, especially because it was a Thursday afternoon. You know, like people have jobs, lives, other things that they need to do and whatever. They're like, no, 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 I'm going to take at least 3 hours out of my day just to travel to go see you. That was really special.
It was. And one thing I really liked too is that like we were all just very chill, just hanging out. And the table that I was at, because you were off gallivanting with all of your friends, we were just talking about planner stuff. It was actually really cool because it's the first time where I've had more than maybe 2 or 3 people, friends of mine who are also in the planning or bullet journaling, like sit down and just talk about planning and talk about like why we got into it and our style and how it's changed and how it's affected their lives for positives. And people brought their bullet journals and they were sharing them and people were signing them. And I just was thinking to myself, like, again, the experience of that was somewhat priceless because it's rare that you're ever in a room filled with people, like-minded people, regardless of the system that they're using, when you can like share the experience that like planning has had on you. I mean, we're all big planner fans and stationery fans. That's why we have a podcast literally talking about these things. But it was extra cool to be around a lot of people from different backgrounds that just have come into it for different reasons.
Yeah, there's something really special about having a like bunch of kind of peers, like-minded people who all just get to share an enthusiasm for something in particular. And it was also kind of nice to have it just slightly separated from all of the kind of like wild energy of Go Wild, you know, time and place and all of that. Absolutely love it. But getting to have a bit more kind of like personal connection time, something that's a little bit more chill, a little bit more kind of like lower energy but still fun type deal. That was really special.
Yeah, and then the biggest part of your meetup for me was the gift that I gave you. That fountain pen was burning a hole in my backpack the entire trip. Every single minute I was with you, I was like, "Do you want it now?" Like you know that you knew it was coming, right? And I was just like, "Do you want?" You're like, "No, not now, not now." And every single time I was like, "Okay, Jess, how about now?" You're like, "No." So finally, like right towards the end, I was like, "I don't care if you want this or not. I don't want to carry it anymore. I'm so excited to give it to you." So that's when I gifted Jess her first fountain pen, which everybody was very enamored with. I was very excited. It was like, you know, when you buy someone a good gift and like everyone else in the room is like, "Oh, I've had my eye on that one." I was like, "Well, Jess has it now. You don't have it."
Nah, 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 nah. I think the best part about it though was like being in transit to Texas and getting a message from you being like, "Don't watch my video." I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like I'm going to use my international data minutes. No, okay, maybe I probably would, but I'm like, what is he talking about? Went to YouTube and it's like the pen that I'm going to give Jashi. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I should save that for later. I ended up watching it later on the trip, like sitting there like in my hotel by myself watching your video, being like, he did give me that. That's so thoughtful. No, that was a really, really sweet gift. I do very much appreciate it. It's really nice as well to have the video with it to see like the thought behind it and all of that. And obviously, like you told me in person, but it's like, it's like a little package deal. So I've been having a lot of fun playing around with that. I haven't actually used it like properly in my journal yet. The only thing I have in my journal for it, because I scribbled it down on the bottom of here, which you can barely see, but it says, "Oddly just find myself wanting to write with this pen." Yeah, I thought that like I would play around with it a little bit before I actually commit to using it in my journal properly.
Hello, like 50,000 times, or I'm writing with a fountain pen as if, you know, someone's reading what your scrap piece of paper. But that's what you do with it. So it definitely takes some time to get used to, I think, until you're comfortable with it. And I gave you a handful of inks to try out too, which again, that'll last you a long time. And hopefully you're not like, "I can't write with this pen because I don't know what color to use," because that's how I get. And I've got, you know, literally rows of inks to pick between.
Yeah, I filled it up with I think TikTok Croc. So, well, I didn't even fill it. I filled it up like a little bit. It's so pretty. I was just like, it's like kind of punchy but kind of subdued, and it's a really pretty green. But like anyway, I feel like if I actually got into inks and trying to describe them, people would be like, "What the fuck is she talking about?" But a lot of fun. I'm very interested to see where this takes me. I hope this doesn't awaken something in me.
It might. I mean, I told you earlier today, I was like, you're like, "Oh, you know, the one pen, you know," and I don't feel comfortable using. I'm like, "Yeah, I've got 2 coming next week." Like, it's something that you just start to like, and you realize I like to write with these, and I also like to play with inks, and it just opens up a whole new world. So I'm super excited.
I can see my papermate ink Joy just being like, "Am I a joke to you?" I'm like, "No, baby, don't worry about it. It'll be fine." But if you were someone who came out to our meetup, you didn't have to bring me a gift like Mark did, but I did get gifts from some of you. So thank you so much for those. Thank you so much for being there. We're of course going to have another one at some point. We just need to like figure out a time and a place, but that's a later us problem. Once we wrapped up the meetup though, it was back to the hotel because we had to get ready for the welcome party.
I had no idea what to really expect from this either, because the way that you explained last year, I literally thought I was going to walk into a karaoke bar. I feel like that was like a really big part of what you talked about last year. And so like walking in there, it was very glamorous, and it was sponsored by Arch and Olive. So like it was actually really beautiful. Right when you walked in, there was this like beautiful bar and it said Arch and Olive above it. And I'm thinking, who gets to keep that afterwards? Because like if it was me, if I was Bonnie, I'd be like, you can go ahead and ship that right back to my house, because that's going to go right in my living room.
It was really cute, and I love the little ampersands that they had on the snacks that they had, because they had like a little kind of dessert bar. Not that I got any of the desserts, because when we
No.
rocked up, the line was long, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not standing in line for that kind of a snack. But they were cute.
Yeah, no snacks for us. I didn't know what was going on because there were so many lines. That I think that's the other theme, lines at Go Wild, because we walked in and there was the line we stood in at first where people were like, oh, by the way, this is the snack line. We're like, okay, where's the bar? And then you go up to the bar and they're like, oh no, you have to stand at these lines to get the bar tickets. And the registers and the people there, it must have been a new system that they were doing. It took so long. So long. And it wasn't just about the people. Like every single transaction felt like it took at least 5 minutes per person. And we were pretty far back in that line. And then you get up to the register. And I know for me, it was like, oh, then you had to like pick the type of drink that you wanted. And each of those drink tickets cost a different amount of money too. And I know part of this podcast was talking about, is it worth it? Right? Like, was this also worth it? But the drinks were really expensive for just like what they were. It was like a domestic beer bottle was like $11. It was like ballpark prices. Like it was definitely sporting event prices. And then it was like, you want a mixed drink? Well, is it a premium mixed drink or like a rail mixed drink? And I'm like, I can't make that decision right now. I'm probably going to start premium, and after 2, I'm going rail. But like, I can't make that decision right now. And I don't know if I want to stand in line again.
Yeah, I think the hard part about having the line for the drink tickets to be so long means that then you're like, okay, I want to buy all of my drink tickets at once because I don't want to have to line up again, because that was a very painful process, honestly. So you get to the top and you're like, okay, now what drinks do I actually want? How many of each do I want? Do I actually know how many drinks I want to have tonight? I have to get up early in the morning. Should I have less because of that? Yeah, so that was a bit of a challenge point. I find that paying for things in America in general is just kind of weird because it's not the system that we use here in New Zealand. Like, if you want to pay for something, you just walk up to the register. Like, in any eatery, you walk up to the register, you pay, you don't have to sign a receipt, you just go, and it's already deducted from your account, everything's sussed. I don't understand why it seems so difficult in the US, but hey, that's just not my culture.
Well, it was the one thing too when we went out to breakfast and I handed the waitress my card, and you were like, why are you giving away your credit card? I was like, because they take it, they ring it up, and they bring you back your card and receipt. And you're like, no, that's stealing in my country.
Yeah, literally. It's like if you called up the bank and said like, oh, somebody like ran off with my money, but I gave them my FPOS card, that it's like, well, that was on you. You made a bad choice.
That'll be a $50 fee for me to send you a new one. That's your punishment.
Literally that. Exactly. So the idea of handing over my FPOS card to somebody else to like ring up for me, I'm like, no, I can come to the counter. I can tap and go my own card, please and thank you. But there's different strokes, I suppose.
Yeah. So once we got those, then you were kind of in it. Now, the one thing, I don't know if this was like this last year or not, but so I was excited at first, but then I'll be, very honest and transparent, is they had this dueling piano duo that were playing a lot of songs. And then some people, I think, were singing karaoke to them, but at like 50 miles a minute. Like they were playing the song so fast, but it was just a lot. I didn't really know like exactly what was supposed to be going on. So like, can you compare like last year's opening night to this one? And I don't know, what are the pros and cons or like the major differences you felt like?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so space-wise, I think that this year's was way better. Like, it was a lot more large, a lot more open, so it didn't feel like people were as crammed in. It didn't feel kind of like as hot and as loud in that respect, which was really nice. The drink line was still long last year. I didn't line up for drinks last year. This year, I was like, treat yourself. You're gonna do it. Oof. long lineup time, but it's fine. When it actually came to the style of karaoke, though, last year we had a DJ, and that is always going to be my preference when it comes to karaoke, because if I want to sing along to a song, I want to sing along to the version I know. I don't want to sing along to somebody else's live, very sped up rendition, especially when you get like some of the rap songs, like the Nicki Minaj songs or the WAP that they were playing. Like, it's all good, but I want to be able to hear my beautiful lyrics as part of this, and you're going too fast for me to appreciate macaroni in a pot. Oh my gosh. So that was a choice. I mean, if I was to pick, I wouldn't pick live music for a karaoke night, but each to their own.
So that was kind of, I think, kind of really the wrap up of that. We can move on to, well, going to bed was a really important part of the night. I do have to share one thing about the hotel rooms, though. Oh, wait, you have to also talk about your hotel room the next day.
Don't tell them!
After a long day of everything, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a shower before I go to bed, like to feel refreshed. The bathrooms inside of the hotel rooms were absolutely beautiful. Like, it was very nice. And so the showers were all glass. Envision, and it's going to be hard. I'm going to do my best for anyone who's not watching the podcast, but listening to it. If I'm facing it, on the left-hand side were all of the controls for the shower, but the shower head was on the opposite side of the wall. Right. And then you had to open the door to the shower. I didn't know that it opened out. So I pushed it in, which kind of halved the shower. So you had your controls that were access to you. And then the shower head was then pouring onto the glass door that was there. And my initial thought was, how do I get into the shower? Do I have to crawl underneath this door? But then I was like, no, Mark, that's probably not how this works. So I get out of the shower and I'm like, oh, the door opens out, Mark. And then realize like, okay, this is how you do it. But it self-admittedly took way too long for me, a grown adult man, to figure out how to get into the shower after I figured out how to turn it on. Like, it was a lot.
I think it didn't help that they had like the two nozzles, because they had two shower heads, one that went kind of pointed down and one that pointed kind of out, which is one that you could like pick up and move around and whatever. We had the dial at the top, which like flicked between the two of them, and then the dial at the bottom, which actually turned the shower on. But it looked like the kind of dial that you'd pull out to turn on, but it's actually one that you twist up, which was kind of confusing. I thankfully didn't take me that long. I had other bathroom troubles, which sounds bad. It wasn't like something bad.
So let's talk about your bathroom troubles. So the next morning we wake up early again, because this is when you go into this event, and there's a group text that Jess messages. Why don't you go ahead, Jess, and share what your message had to do with?
I'm pretty sure that I just said, I'm a fucking idiot. Guess what the message said. So when I got in, after my 26-hour of travel, might I add, so I was already in a state. Got into the hotel room, looking around and stuff. Wow, this is beautiful. This is lovely. Got to the bathroom sink to like brush my teeth, freshen up, wash my face in particular, because I felt so gross. And I was like, oh, okay, the plug hole's in. Like, all right, I'll just click that out. Because in my house, in the plug holes we have, you click them in and out kind of a thing to get them to open and close. So I pressed it and nothing happened. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just weak. Press it harder. Nothing happened. I'm like standing there giving like CPR to the sinkhole. Like, please open. I don't want to have to fill up this sink. I couldn't get it open. I could not figure out how to actually open up the plug. So I'm like, all right, we're just going to have to wash our face in the sink. And then when it comes to brushing our teeth, we'll just go spit it in the toilet, which I have toothpaste that is like purple toothpaste because I thought it was like a fun idea. It looked kind of novel. But when you actually brush your teeth, it's like really blue. So I spat this into the toilet, dyed the entire toilet blue. I'm like, that's a problem for future me as well. Like, went to sleep, woke up in the morning. I'm like, okay, we need to figure out the sink problem, because now it's just like cloudy, cleaned face water and a blue toilet. Ugh. So I called the reception being like, hey, I don't know what the issue is, but like, I can't get my sink to open. I like messaged the group chat. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I don't know how to open up my sink. They're trying to send me messages back to help me. I'm like, no, that didn't work. Get back at the end of the day. The sink is drained. Huzzah. But the plug hole's still in it. So I'm like, did you open my sink just to close it again? And now I have the same bloody problem and can't open the sink back up. Turns out there's a pop socket thing on the back of the tap that you're just supposed to pull up, and I could not find it.
That I told you about.
Yeah. No, you messaged that, but then immediately sent me a picture of under the sink. So what was I supposed to think? I'm like, I'm not getting under the sink.
Yeah, and the group chat is like, wow, look at Mark going all dad on us. But you were like, there isn't a plunger behind for the drain. And I was like, Jess, it's right behind. Now, again, it's a very modern looking sink. Like everything's very modern. Again, it was very well hidden. I will give you that. But even anyone that could reach up there, and I know you could reach with your arms, maybe your little legs couldn't, but your arms got behind there. I know it was there. And when you said no, I thought, okay, maybe she has a different model sink. And I literally got under my sink and I took a picture of where literally the piece that pulls up connects to the drain hole to push the little pop socket up. And you were like, F that, I'm not doing that. And I was like, well, then you're just going to have a mucky sink for the rest of the time. I was like, do you want me to come do it for you? You're like, nope, meet us downstairs. And I'm just like, I can solve this. I know that I can. Like, I maybe can't get into the shower, but I certainly know how to open up a sink.
No, I'm not a problem solver. I'm a problem complain abouter. It's different, all right? But yeah, I felt like such a fool. I'm like, I called the engineering team to open the sinkhole for me, but it's cool. Great service. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Thank you, Lowe's Arlington.
Once we get through all of that, next day we're ready to go in. This is the big day, right? This is all the big speakers. This is eventually the crop. My stomach is already turning. I remember calling my wife. I was like, I feel so sick. Like I was, very nervous, but luckily people were pumping me up all day long. It was an excited sick. Like, the first day of school, like excited is kind of how I felt about it.
Totally understand how you were feeling super sick though, because like the night prior, I was asked to introduce Bonnie. I had to say like 2 sentences maximum, and I was freaking out. Like I got the worst quality of sleep ever, along with the sink issues. I'm like, life is in shambles type of deal. So completely understand that you must have been feeling what I was feeling like tenfold, because yours was an entire segment.
Yeah, I was up at like 4 a.m., which, I don't usually ever wake up that early. I just couldn't sleep. I don't know what it was about it. And I really think probably the biggest thing for me was because I hadn't seen the ballroom yet. So I didn't know how big of a space, because I saw the planner fair space, which again was huge, which had a ton of people in it. But that was a fourth of the size of the ballroom. But for whatever reason, after we stood in the giant line, which we were escorted again out of the building to then come back into the building to get there, once I saw the ballroom, I actually felt better because I kind of knew the space I was going to be in, which, don't get me wrong, 1,500 people fit into this ballroom, not squished together. And I'll just tell you, when I saw the tables and just how they were decorated and like all of the stuff, again, we were there much later than everybody else because we were like back of the line, back of the auditorium, getting in there. It was just, it was so awesome.
I know, right? I loved like the lines starting. Well, when I first got downstairs, it started at the lobby, and it's like, okay, that's cool. Oh no, Mark's in the shop. I'll go see him. And then by the time we were finished in the little shop, it was literally outside. So we're like, okay, we'll go line up outside again. Then to walk all the way inside, all the way down the corridor, around the loop, up the escalator, and then around the block again and into the actual space that we were going to be. You're like, the tension's building. I can hear the crowd being hyped from like half a mile down this corridor. Let's go. And then actually getting into the room where it happens, it's like, we're here. We made it. But now the panic sets in. Where the hell am I going to sit? There are so many people here already. Do we find a table that has 2 open seats? Oh my gosh. But we did manage to find a couple.
We did find a couple, and that was the hardest decision, because then you're at a glance trying to make decisions of where you're going to sit. And as you are thinking about it, for that split second, people are just not rudely pushing past you, but trying to get a seat. And we're like, oh, let's go sit over there. That looks really cool. Like, we haven't heard of this brand before. And like, by the time you got there, it was filled. So then you're like, okay, what about over here? And then we were going through and we saw a handful of tables. It was Alton New, which is a brand that I remember seeing last year. And they had some stamps and stuff. We definitely checked out the tables first. I wanted to sit at the Go Wild U table, had like cameras that they were giving away and stuff. And then the Zebra table was just filled with the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I have all of them. Like, don't get me wrong, I have every single pen. Not all of them. There was a few things I didn't have. I was like, well, Jess, there's plenty of seats here. Do you want to sit here? And you're like, yeah, sure. And then like, as soon as I sat down, we got comfortable. Crystal, who is a part of the Zebra team, looked at me. She's like, Mark, why are you sitting at the Zebra table? I was like, I'm not going to lie to you. Of what was left, it probably was one of the best ones.
Yeah. I mean, this is the hard thing. I know a lot of people say there are no bad tables. And, like, technically speaking, there aren't, you know? There are a lot of really good quality products that you're getting regardless of where you sit. But I do not think that there is equal amounts of, like, value for money swag at all of the
Mhm.
tables. And I'm not sure how they organize it. I am not sure what the kind of like requirements are for sponsoring a table, like if there's a minimum amount of like product or whatever else, but it's really hard to compare, like, no offense, an alter new table to a no teak table.
Oh, sure.
If you gave somebody the choice, I don't think there's going to be a lot of umming and ahhing about which one they're going to snap up quick. And that's why the no teak tables go as quickly as they do.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with Notique, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know a lot about the brand either. It's about like very like eloquent, elegant planner bags, planners. I wouldn't call them purses because honestly, they looked like beautiful high end purses, but I couldn't really tell exactly what they were. But again, not for me, right? As I'm going in there, like going to roll out with like a purse and a bag and a leatherette wristlet, but like really beautiful stuff that people were like freaking out over. Like people were running at those tables.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous stuff. And it also is, you know, it has a higher price point. So it totally makes sense that if you're paying the same price for a ticket as everybody else who's there, why not sit at the table that gives you the most kind of bang for your buck, I suppose you could say. Other tables that were absolutely gorgeous, like you said, the Wild U table, like with the little Instax cameras, I think they were. That
Hmm.
was so cute to see. Archer and Olive's tables were bloody beautiful as well. Like what the leather tote bag and then the like zipper pouch that they had, and
Hmm.
bunches of washi and all of this kind of stuff. But sitting at the zebra table, I was very happy. I got myself a stuffed zebra. I got myself a whole bunch of pens. I appreciate, though, that this year, with the table I sat at, I actually felt inclined to keep a lot more than the
Hmm.
stuff that I got at my table last year. Last year, I walked away with a pair of tweezers. And I will say, they are excellent tweezers. But to sit at a table and get a pair of tweezers, I'm like, maybe not.
And the cool thing about the tables too, and I didn't know this because never having been before, I actually said to Jess, I was like, I really want that Altenew stamp set that's on the table, but I didn't really wasn't drawn towards a lot of the other things that were at that table. I was like, do you think they would swap with me? And I'm thinking people swap stuff all the time at like planner swaps, right? And like stationary meetups and stuff like that. She's like, maybe. And I was like, I don't know. I'm too nervous to ask. But Jess has no problem whatsoever. She got right up. She was like, hey, my friend over there wants to trade one of these stamps. Anybody down? And I think you said like one person said yes. And then they didn't come back to their table for 2 hours. And I'm sitting over there like, well, what do I do? And I went over there. I was like, hey, so someone over here said they wanted to trade. And, you know, I was like, I literally came over with like boxes of pens because I had a lot of it. I was like, you can have all of this. All I want is your one stamp. And everyone was like, oh, sorry, I took mine upstairs already. Or, oh, I'm sorry, I gave my other one away. I'm like, someone at this table said that they were going to trade. And I got real serious. Not really. But I was like, I've got all of this pen stuff I want to give somebody. All I want is your stamp set. Luckily, someone else was like, oh, I'm not a big stamper. Sure. I was like, what do you want? Take anything you want. And it was a nice, even trade. And then I went back as the happiest little person I could possibly be.
Yeah, I ended up trading a pack of mild liners for a set of washi tape from Archer and Olive, literally for one tape, because I'm like, ooh, I like that check. And they're like, well, you've got mild liners, I'll take those. I'm like, absolutely, because I've already got the mild liners. So that was kind of the thing that I was maybe a little apprehensive about sitting at the zebra table, because like you said, you have a lot of their product already. And I'm like, well, I've got mild liners that I don't really use. So I'm like, do I really need more zebra pens? But I'm very glad. I'm very glad that we sat there, and I really like all of the stuff that I got from them.
Yeah, so I could definitely see and understand with a conference like this when we talk about the value, the monetary value of that, why people get very excited for these tables, these sponsored tables, because like you just said, they aren't all treated equally. I think something else that I realize is that some of the tables are also sponsored by smaller creators. So there is a handful of tables that were sponsored by sticker shops or stencil shops that are well known, I would say. Again, a lot of them I was just meeting for the first time, but I had to remind myself probably the reason that I didn't know about them is because like we're a part of like the bullet journal community, and like a lot of these other planners are really big into stickers. It was probably the biggest area of topic and talked about the most throughout was sticker shops and sticker trivia and, you know, all types of sticker jargon that, you know, I was like, cool, I like stickers sometimes. But when you are looking at, like you said, Notique, which has these beautiful, I don't know if they were real leather or faux leather or whatever, but these just very elegant pieces on there. Or you're looking at the Archer and Olive table with the tote bags and the zippers and notebooks and acrylographs and all of that. Or the zebra table, which just, again, like every mild liner, every colored pencil, every pen, everything you could ever possibly want and more all on that table. You definitely are trying to find kind of the biggest bang for your buck, I feel like.
Yeah, and I feel like some people took it a little too far and maybe tried to get a little bit more bang for their buck than they were initially supposed to, considering we have like the centerpieces, which are not supposed to be taken by
Oh my
attendees. They're there
gosh.
to decorate the tables, and some of those ended up mysteriously vanishing into the night. So, getting your money's worth, I suppose, but
Didn't someone say that they stole a tree?
yeah, I think that one year somebody stole a tree, supposedly. I was not there for that, so you can't get angry at me for it, but I'm like, I feel like there are better ways to decorate your house, but that's just me.
How do you travel with like a candelabra in your purse? You know, that's not an easy thing to travel with.
Well, for me, I'm like, how do you sneak out of a conference room? But I suppose like so many people are just like focusing on their own excitement and their own experience and stuff like that. It probably is quite easy to slip out with more than you're supposed to have. So it's sad that people do that. And it's sad that then the brands have to kind of like, go and find replacements for those items and stuff if they're going to sponsor a table next year. But also, like, do you put that into your cost? Like miscellaneous costs, stolen goods. Like that's not a fun time for
No,
anybody.
it's
So
not.
recommendation: if you're going to go wild, leave the centerpieces where they're supposed to be. Please, they're not for you. You have enough stuff.
Yeah, get the value out of things like the speakers. So let's go into that a little bit because never having been to something like this, understanding that a lot of conferences are having special people come and talk and speak, inspire you. There was one speaker specifically that has had the biggest impact on me. So we were just talking about Notique. Again, I was not very aware of that brand or anything else, but the CEO, her name is VJ, and her entire speech was about how to be elegant. And I'll tell you from my experience, right? Most of the time you hear elegance and you think about, femininity. You think about, powerfulness, kind of making your space in a room. By the time she was done with hers, I was internally thinking about how I could be more elegant, but as a man, right? A little bit of a different perspective on this because, again, her things were about how you held yourself. It was about how you speak to someone. She talked a lot about having a custom scent, right? A personal scent, perfume or something that's like represents you. And, a lot of that I'm like, no, I guess that makes sense. Like, you go to hug someone or you meet someone and you smell very nice. Like, it's about being memorable for the right reasons. And I just when she finished talking, I was just like, I felt just like, I don't know the words for it, like personally touched by the words that she was saying. Like I felt like I could come out of that as a new person. And I really did. And I've actually been thinking about her speech since the talk. Every single day, I think about it through different experiences that you have. I'll let you kind of give your experience. I just wanted to share like one of the things she said during that, which really was impactful for me. But I'll let you go with like what you thought about hers if you had any specific thoughts.
No, I completely agree. I found VJ to be my favorite speaker from last year as well. Like, in terms of my little notes book, she was the one that I had the most written down for because I'm like, everything you say is literally like hitting me straight in the feels. And it's really interesting to think about, like, personal branding, I suppose, which I don't think a lot of people think about personal branding as much as maybe I do. Which is always an interesting topic because it feels kind of ick at face value. Like, I don't like to think of my stuff online or anything like that as a brand or as a
Mm-hmm.
business, even though technically it is. But I appreciated just like the way that she spoke about it and the way she gets you to think about it. It doesn't give me that ick feeling at all. Like, it feels like something to be kind of like nurtured and developed and
Mm-hmm.
cultivated with real
Mm-hmm.
intention behind it to make sure that then you're putting out what you want the world to get from you in the most positive way possible. That was really valuable.
And one of the things we did as a part of it, I actually hung it up here in my office because, again, I was so impacted. So during it, she had you write down 3 words that you wanted people to see you as. So I wrote down kind, funny, and creative. Like when people think of you, what are the three words that you want people to think of? So like that's what I want everyone to think of me as. And I just have to tell the story because this happened later on but I just want to show you like this is the type of person that VJ is, right? This is what I realized afterwards. This is her personal brand. I had put kind of a follow-up post when I was in the airport for hours, worst nightmare ever. And I was just kind of reflecting on the conference as a whole. And I wrote the most about VJ, just about the impact that she had on me and just, how it made me feel afterwards and made me want to be a better person. And I had posted that. Later on in the day, I get a voice message in Instagram from her in the most elegant speaking voice. And she's like, Mark, I just want to thank you for writing that. And I'm so glad that this had the impact on you. And you are kind and you are funny and you are so creative. And everyone should know that about you. Now, I posted my picture of this 2 days before, like, she wrote me that message. She remembered these things and then put them in her actual voice message, not texting it to me, a voice message to me to thank me for my kind words. And I'm sitting in the airport having the worst experience ever with the biggest smile on my face with like the warm feels because I felt exactly how she talked about in her speech. I felt that personal connection with her. I felt special in that moment. And that's a lot of what she talked about. I'm sorry, I'm getting like emotional about it because that's just like, that was the impact that this had on me.
But I think that's really nice as well. And it's good to have like, especially for the first session of the day, like first session of the conference, like have that be such an impactful moment for you. It's nice to hear, honestly. I think that it's valuable to hear about it. Also, just like what you said, like her messaging you with a voice message, like it shows so much how these small things that we do for others can have such a big impact. Like, when was the last time you messaged someone just because you were thinking of them? Like, kind of a thing. This is not necessarily a question for you. You do not have to answer it, but...
Oh, no, I send people reels all the time.
It's like pebbling, right? With penguins.
That's exactly it.
Literally, it's penguin pebbling. It's like, I saw this and I thought of you, and it's usually somebody like falling out of a car saying life's going great or like whatever. It's like, yeah, there's a vibe, but just like the thoughtfulness that came with that and like taking time out of her day, remembering those things about you and messaging that to you, it feels special because it is special. Mm-hmm. I think that's really nice. And it gives you a moment of pause, like, okay, well, what am I putting out into the world? What does that say about me? How other people actually get to perceive me? And is that aligned with what I want there to be out there? So it was valuable. I enjoyed her session a lot. I didn't get to enjoy it as much, though, because I was freaking out because I had to introduce Bonnie, who was the next speaker. Oh, my gosh. I feel for you so hard. Like, you had to do a full presentation, and I literally, 2 sentences. The heebie-jeebies, but I got it done.
You did great, though. You did a really great job. I think my best part was like getting a random message from one of the people who put on the conference. Are you sitting next to Jess? I love that people already just assumed that we were sitting together and they were correct in their assumption. And she was like, can you send her backstage? And I'm like, sure. But like, how do we get there? Because I have no idea. But you did a fantastic job. I think everybody, I mean, we all cheered for you because we all love you so much. It was great to have you do that. And it was fantastic. I was like, yes, like this is just a little taste for Jess for what, in the future when we come as a Planner Pals podcast event together. I'm really pushing for that next year. I'm going to have somebody sponsor us, but like, it was just a taste of what it was going to be like. And you did a great job, and Bonnie did a really great job too.
For sure. I like was talking to her backstage and like seeing her process of getting ready and stuff. And I'm just like, oh, I feel for you so hard because like to go after VJ for one thing, because like, as we said, she was kind of a favorite in terms of our sessions. But it was really valuable to like get to interact with her in person beforehand and then getting to introduce her and like kind of be her hype person as much as I could be in my nerves. But it was really nice to see her actually get to speak as a full session this year, because last year she was on the founders panel, which was more kind of interview style, which, it was valuable as well. But to have her like lead a session, which was like, I don't know, 40-ish minutes or whatnot, that was really cool.
Yeah. And for her too, I always forget that she has like extreme anxiety. Her entire presentation was about planning and mental wellness and kind of the pieces. And she shared a lot about her experience from being diagnosed and kind of the things that she's gone through and how it's helped her. And I just always forget about the fact that she has like crippling anxiety and that was a really big deal for her to be up there and doing that. And, she right out said like, look, I'm going to get through this because I'm reading through my cards. And I feel you on that because like, we'll talk about it in a few minutes, because once I get going and I don't have a script, anything goes. You don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. So a lot of respect for her going through that, leading everybody through a really cool session. They did a little drop, which happens all the time at these, which I didn't know about. And we all got like the cutest little notebook with a llama on it. It was kind of like a accordion kind of notebook. I don't know what you would call it, memory keeping kind of notebook. You've got the sticker club kits that came as a part of that too. And like, that was just really cool because, again, you and I on the ambassador team, we've been a part of that for a long time, but it was cool to be there as someone watching, not representing a brand like them, and then to be a part of that experience of like getting those nice things too, to play along. But I didn't put anything in that book because I got to save that for something special.
Yeah, it's too precious. Didn't put anything in the book, but I'm like, I'll play with the washi tape and I'll like look through the kit club kind of stuff and that kind of thing. But I'm like, no, this is precious, and this is like going to be some kind of like heirloom one day, so I can't possibly touch it. I don't know what kind of heirloom I'm going to make with a llama on it, because llamas and me aren't like the best of friends, which is great for a conference where the mascot is the llama. But yeah, it's cool. I'll find something special for it at some stage.
Yeah, there were some other really great presenters too. I know this podcast is going super long, but we have to talk about Martha Stewart, because I think we all have an impression of what we think Martha Stewart is going to be like, because we've watched her for years be Martha Stewart. But I want to talk about Martha Stewart not giving one flying F in how she interacted and answered questions throughout her entire thing, because her whole thing was a Q&A style where they interviewed her throughout, and just every time she just had the most amazing answers. You and I were laughing about the knitting one, which we'll get to first, but what were your general impressions about Martha?
100%, like you said, just did not give two shits about whether she was going to offend or if her answer was going to stick. She was not there to please a crowd kind of a thing, but she certainly showed up as herself. So yay for authenticity for Martha Stewart. Actually having someone there that was like so well known felt very special, because last year the person that we had was Renee Goldsberry. That's bad. Anyways, she was in Hamilton. She was one of the lead singers in that. I had to watch Hamilton before I went because I had absolutely no clue who she was. She was great. Like, loved her presentation and stuff, but obviously I still don't know who she is, so that's kind of a problem. But Martha Stewart is somebody who like she's like a noun in the dictionary, I swear. Like, she should be if she isn't already. Like, I feel like she's probably a verb as well, or like an adjective. You Martha Stewarted it.
Well, she said she wanted to be a word that you could use in Scrabble actually during her talk. So like she has, vision. I'm sure she has it on a vision board somewhere. Like, I got Martha Stewarted or something. Well, some people got Martha Stewarted because she had things to share about her opinions.
Oh my God, it was so funny when somebody was like, the presenter, Lauren, who's one of the, I don't know, organizers for Go Wild, she was talking about like, oh, more people than the population of the world have watched this. And she said the number, and I'm like, that's not more than the population of the world. And Martha called her out. She's like, do some maths without a calculator on your phone kind of a thing. It was like, oh.
Yeah, she's like, I already got my check to be here, so I can say whatever I want. Yeah, she was going just off. It was so great. And I was surprised because I think everyone wants her to talk about her prison sentence, right? Because this is Martha Stewart, right? She's literally the queen of domestic everything, right? Farming, gardening, home care, all of this. And like, to know that she went to jail, we were just waiting for it. And so there was my favorite part of her entire piece. This is one of the things I know I wrote down. I think everyone wrote it down. Someone was asking her, I think, about like either hobbies or crafts that she didn't really enjoy, right? She said that her granddaughter got her into knitting or crocheting or something like that. And she's like, I got the most beautiful orange Hermes thread, right? Or whatever, wool. What's it called that you knit with? Yarn. That's what it was. She's like, and to knit blah, 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 a scarf. And she's like, it was a prison sentence of a task to finish that. And like, everybody starts cracking up, right? Like, she said it. No one said, tell us about your time in prison. She literally dropped prison into her task of things that she had to get done.
And I mean, like, of all the people who would know, she would know. So it comes out with like more authenticity because of that.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't make me want to take up knitting though.
No, and it takes, 18 months to life to knit a scarf if you're Martha Stewart, just that's how it works.
Oh dear. It'd probably take me a lifetime to knit a scarf, but Anyways, she was a good speaker though. It was good to actually get to see her in person, even if not like, up close and personal or anything like that. Of course, they had meet and greet time afterwards, didn't they? Like with a little bit
I
of
don't
time
know
for
with
that. I can't
her if she
remember.
did or not. I think she was kind of in and out, but she did drop a few good nuggets, though. One of my favorite things when she talked about creating a business plan, being an amazing businesswoman in her empire, she talked about the universe is how she talked about it, with like Martha Stewart living as like the sun. Right. That was kind of the main piece of it, which was the center of everything. And then she said, then the orbiting planets around that were media, so it was like TV, probably social media, some other part was there. And then the outer rim were the products that feed the media, which feed into Martha Stewart Living. And I just thought that was really genius as a way to think about it, because it was all about kind of feeding into the center of what you want, which for her was Martha Stewart Living, and then everything kind of branching out from there, which again, I wrote that down with a terrible illustration because I was really paying attention to what she said. I was like, I should write this down. I might need this at some point in my life and never remember it again. But there were some really good nuggets that I felt like that she gave.
I think my favorite part was when somebody asked her like what her favorite color was, and it was like this really random color of gray. And I went and looked it up because I'm like, oh yeah, I'll go see what this is. And it literally the first Google hit was Martha Stewart gray. I'm like, there, done. It's a vibe. She's made it. Yeah, suck it, Pantone.
Yeah, for real. So, once everything wraps up, I was doing really well up until this point, knowing that the crop was on its way. And then Lauren was like, make sure you all come back later because Zebra's hosting the crop with amazing workshops and hosts. And instantly, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. And like that same sick feeling that I had in the morning came back instantly. And I was like, okay, y'all, I need to eat something because I didn't get anything during the snap break because all they had left was like yogurt parfaits and jello, and that wasn't going to fill me up. I was like, I got to get back to my room to practice. I had beautiful notes that I had been working on for 2 months. I rewrote them twice in my room because I was like, okay, Mark, we're going to be doing these cool giveaways. Like we have to make room for this stuff. Anything could happen. So be prepared. So I write these beautiful notes out, right? And I come, I go backstage. I meet people later on. I've gone through everything. They're kind of, miking me up. They're getting me ready, all this stuff. I'm like, breathing in the back, practicing my stuff, walking around the back. And they're like, okay, Mark, let's go. And you're going to open it up. While I'm in there freaking out, Jess, there was other stuff going on. So what were you up to?
Yeah, well, first of all, trying to find something to eat because I also did have nothing at the energy break. So I was very peckish. But once we'd sorted that out, once we'd gotten some food in me, then it was time for the kind of breakout sessions that were held by people in the community. So this was a new thing this year, which was quite exciting. We didn't really have anything specifically planned in the afternoons last year. And as much as it would have been fun to go and explore Arlington, I didn't really make any kind of list of stuff that I really wanted to see beforehand. So to have something actually like scheduled on the ticket, like, yes, this is what's happening, that was kind of nice. So we had ones related to like a Taylor Swift listening party. They had that. They had the Beyonce's new album listening party. People getting very enthusiastic about their thing. They had one related to pen pals and like swapping postcards and that kind of stuff. That was the session that I popped into because I was specifically requested to be there. So I took my little like very shitty New Zealand postcards along. I'm like, hey, I got these for you. I hope you like them. And she thankfully was like so excited. She's like, yes, this is awesome. Thank you so much. Like I've made like a package of ones for you with the stickers that she'd made and stuff, which was like really, really cool. So it was very nice to hang out with the people who were all very enthusiastic about, pen pals and writing letters to each other. I'm not a writer. It's odd because like keep a physical planner. I don't actually like writing, but it was exciting to be around people who were enthusiastic about it. We had people who were into like painting. We had people who were doing diamond art where you stick diamond and dimenties on stuff.
Oh, the diamond painting.
Yeah, diamond painting. And so just like all of these little breakout sessions that were all in their own individual rooms, because before we got there, I thought they were all going to be in the same room, just in separate corners based on the little kind of like printout map we were given. No, they were all in separate individual little kind of conference spaces. It felt very kind of like official. And they all had their own little signs out the front. So that was really cool. And it was nice to have an opportunity to kind of like, obviously we're all there for planners and we're all there because we're enthusiastic about stationery and planner paraphernalia and all of that. But to have these little breakout sessions where people kind of like niche down almost and get amongst just a specific pocket of people who are into the same very specific thing as them. Like having a listening party for Taylor Swift's album, I thought was kind of fun. Like I didn't go. I still haven't listened to the album, but I thought it was a cool idea.
Jess, you can't admit that in public. Like someone will come for you. They will at you.
If Jess has not listened to at least one Taylor Swift song on the new album by the next episode, then like burnt at the stake.
I have to find a new co-host, honestly.
Oh no, I'm gonna get replaced. I'm sure that Natasha will be like keen to join you. She loves Taylor Swift.
There is no need to necessarily be a Taylor Swift fan to be a part of this podcast. Not saying that we're not, just saying that if you are on the podcast, you don't have to be. It's just don't worry about it.
So, of course, that's what I was doing while you were freaking out. But I will say, I loved the wild crop. I thought you did a really good job of it.
Thank you, Jess, for recording all of that for me, because I'm pretty sure I basically like half blacked out, right? Because you're just talking. I walk out on stage. There's 1,400 people in this humongous ballroom. Like I was expecting to go out to like a handful of tables, maybe half full, because I thought other people are doing stuff. No, everybody was there. But I fell into it, I feel like, pretty comfortably. You know, I had all my stuff set up on the desk because we were doing the workshop, which I essentially went through and showed everyone kind of just like basic ways to use easy things in your journal, like how to do different lettering, cool like drop shadows, containers, whatever. I was feeling really good going into that. I had my notes to the side. I had all my pens laid out perfectly in the order in which we're going to do them. Randomly, they were giving away like those huge like circles of mile liners. And then we did the mile liner mix giveaway, which is the biggest thing of the night, which is this really cool dual colored pen that has a single tip. So like when you highlight with it, it highlights in two colors. All kinds of stuff was great. While I'm doing my presentation, I'm, listening to the crowd. I'm trying to get them involved. And it's not the best setup. I'm used to like my YouTube setup, right? Like a good camera, good lighting, good projection. I can see everything. I didn't have that. And it's no knock to the team there. Again, they're working with that. Or I'm doing it with like my really fine point pen. And I start to hear people saying, we can't see it. And I'm like, I can see it, right? I can't see these big screens on the side. They're like, no, you got to go into the light, move it into the light. And me, all script, I'm like, am I doing so bad? You want me to walk into the light? Like, just to try to lighten it up. So then the rest of my presentation, I'm like, well, if they can't see the fine point pens, I'm going to have to use the big ass bullet end of one of my mild liners. So I go from having like a 0.5, really nice, beautifully done pen work to this big, fat, ugly looking demonstration. I'm going so fast. I'm sweating and every part of my body that could sweat because I'm like, I'm bombing right now. Like this isn't working the way that it was supposed to. I've been rehearsing this for 2 months. I just rewrote this twice up in my hotel room. Nothing's going to plan, but we made it through it. I don't know. From the audience, Jess, did I do okay?
No, I mean, I think you did fine. I remember getting in there. I'm like, I need to find a table that's near the stage. I need to see Mark perform. So I'm like literally bunny hopping across tables, trying to find like a spare seat. Because I initially went and sat down, I think with, I don't even remember who. Doesn't matter because I didn't end up sitting there. So I ended up like bunny hopping between 3 different tables to find one that was as close to where you were presenting as possible. Sat down next to a couple people that we'd been hanging out with across the time we were there. And I'm like, all right, I can see Mark from here. This is pretty comfortable. But then there was a seat that was like right next to the stage. I'm like, okay, I'm going to like almost commando crawl down to like go and like, get shots from the floor. I felt like, in Mean Girls.
Yes, the mom.
The lady's like filming her daughter. It's literally, I was the mom. I was so excited. I'm like, get it, Mark. Yeah. So like it was doing like just dumb shit, like taking so many photos. I got back to my hotel room later that night and I looked through my footage and it's just like half of it is just Mark doing stuff. And I'm like, this feels creepy, but it's a vibe. I don't care.
No, I appreciate it because my wife the whole time when we did the meet and greet, she was like, Mark, did you get any pictures? Did you get any videos? I was like, no, like I was meeting and greeting people. So I was super thankful, Jess, that you did that because it's something that I can actually like watch because, people were taking videos and they were doing other stuff, which is great. I feel like every picture, my hands were just in the air saying something. Someone, I don't think you had it. It was a great picture. I was doing something. They're like, you look like a DJ. Like
that was me.
Yeah. I was just like, no, I kind of do look like a DJ, but it was awesome.
Yeah, Aaron's like DJ Pages gonna drop the sick beats, Mardliner mix, wiki wop. Like, so good.
It was cool. And so, once that wrapped up, we had a few minutes left. I was like, Mark, just get off stage. You've caused enough trouble tonight. Let's just move along. There were some other really great parts of that too. So Bess from Lights Planner Action, she had some really cool things that she said that stood out to me because I was backstage at this point sweating because I still have to introduce her and Amanda Rachel Lee, as I was most nervous about. And then also they had like a sound bowl thing at the end. But she was talking about, your handwriting being like a fingerprint, which I thought was really good. Like, don't be ashamed of your handwriting. Like, that's your own certain style. So really accept that. And then she also said the one page done is better than none. Not being scared of white space, not being afraid of kind of filling things up. Those are two things that kind of stood out to me.
I think that Bess is just, she's a force. Like, I know that there was a table quite close to me who were just like so bloody pumped that she was there. So it's like, and out next we have Bess Whiteman of Lights Planner Action. They're like, wow, chucking things, like screaming. I'm like, get amongst it. It was great. So it's always very exciting to see the enthusiasm people have for just people in the planner community in general. Like, when you came on stage, like, I was freaking out, and so are the people who know you, and then like Bess comes out, they're freaking out, and then Amanda comes out and the little doodles are just like, ah! So it was all very exciting. I appreciated the little bits that she gave away because she had a couple sticker sheets, and she also had a little kind of like almost like a sample planner, but it was like very much Go Wild themed, like Wild Memories. That was really cute. So getting to play around in that, and her talking about the way that she likes to memory keep and kind of collage things and stuff, and get to see a little bit of her process, which was really cool as well. But yeah, she's just a light.
She definitely is. The energy that she brought was fantastic. And then after her was Amanda Rachel Lee. And I think the coolest part for me was actually like having a conversation with her backstage. So when she was at her table, I did go by and I did say hello. She said that she knew who I was, which I thought was very nice of her. I don't know if she did or not. But backstage, we were talking more about it. And I was just saying like how great this was. And, I've been a fan of hers for a while, and just thanking her for a lot of what she's contributed to the planner community as a whole, I think has been really fantastic. And she was saying like, it's really great to be able to come to events like this because this isn't something normally that she does. She's like, I'm from Canada. I know like 3 other like planner YouTubers that live in Canada, and that's about it. Like, coming to somewhere like this was pretty awesome because she got to meet a lot of other people that do different types of planning. And, she said it was great to meet some of the other creators that had introduced themselves to them as well, which was pretty nice. I mean, really, she was there to promote her notebook and her little doodle carriers and like other stuff like that, which she did a great job at, right? She did a great job of promoting her stuff. She gave some stuff out. I was just in the back, like thinking about what was next. So from your perspective, I know she did like a doodle of one of her little froggerts or frogberts or something, I think was its name.
Yeah, I think it's frog. I'm gonna call it Frogbert. I mean, like, anytime I draw a frog, I call it Pava Hoppy, so it's like I can't not see Pava Hoppy. But yeah, she drew one of her little doodle pieces that she puts in a piece every so often, I think, on her channel. But yeah, that was kind of cute, getting to see the process for like, taking the basic shapes, breaking it down into those, and then drawing it up from there. Of course, mine did not turn out like a frog. It looked more like a bear, but that's fine. Like, I tried.
Yeah, Bearbert.
Yeah, Bearbert. I think that Pepper Hoppy's better. Like, it was still cute. It was nice to see everybody, like, doing their take on it and stuff. And it's like, even though we're all following the same instructions, everybody's ends up a little bit unique. It's all just a little bit special. So that was quite cute.
And it was cool. And afterwards, after the crop ended and people were kind of like leaving, someone did come up to me, which I thought was really cool. I don't know what planner that she was using. It was definitely like more of a pre-made planner. She was sharing, she has like a workout tracker and like a calendar that she keeps. And she had a lot of stickers and stuff in there. She was already using like some of the lettering that I did. Again, I'm just showing people how to do like easy fonts and things that anyone can do. And she was already like altering it and changing it and mixing things. And then to also have like Amanda Rachel Lee and like the doodle that she did, like all in this one page. And it was like that moment that I really thought like, this is pretty damn cool. And then as I'm continuing to walk, someone else came over. One of the volunteers were like, this person really wants to meet you. Her and her husband are really big fans of you. And I went out and met with her, and we were talking about fountain pens, and she shared with me something that just really, again, hit really home for me, right? Because I've talked about it a little bit, as we went into it. I said there's probably like all of 10 guys at this planner event, right? Some of them were there to support their wives. There was some guys that had on t-shirts that said like Real House Husbands of Go Wild, right? They were there to help support. Some people had like smaller kids with them, right? And they came down during some events and the husbands were helping out. And then some of them were just other planner enthusiasts, right? That were men, which is for me is always great to see. I love talking with anybody else that's kind of in that space. But she was sharing that her husband is in the military and that he has been a really big fan of me for a while and was bullet journaling. And he does that while he is in the military. He keeps a small pocket notebook. Because he said they can only carry what you can carry on your person. So he has like a small notebook, and he talked about how like him and his other guys that he's out there with will talk about planning and kind of keeping things in order. And it was just one of those things that I was just like, this is so freaking cool. And also all the different ways that people plan. Like here's a guy that's in the military, right? That is literally like keeping himself in order using just a very small pocket notebook and a pen to kind of keep his brain in a space, which I thought was really great. So it was awesome to hear about someone taking these things that like they've been a fan of, they learned from someone, and then they're out there sharing it and kind of doing it on their own. But it was cool to talk to someone else about fountain pens too, because we geeked out for a few minutes about all of them. We talked about it. Some people were like, I was too scared to come say hi, but it's like, no, dude, because like those are types of interactions that I'll probably never get to have again, or not the same ones at least, right? To be able to talk about that or have people share those stories, which have always been awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice to just be able to kind of get an in-person appreciation for the diversity in our community and get to interact, like you said, with people who otherwise you don't really get to chat to. Like there's a difference between talking face to face and talking via messenger, even if it is like a voice recording, actually being like in the room where it happens with all of this like, enthusiasm and energy around you because people are there to celebrate the same thing that you're there to celebrate. That's really valuable and really cool.
So once that was all done, stress is gone. It was time for bed. Needed to like decompress. Again, it was fantastic hanging out with some friends. I felt like once that was done, then I could like really enjoy myself. But we only had a short amount of time because it was pretty late. But the next day for me was a little stressful, but it started out joyous. So the first part was getting together these table gifts because like you told me, I didn't have to do table swaps, but you basically said that I needed to do them. So I did it. My table swaps, you did a much better job at this than I did. My table swaps are mostly things that I already had here at my house because I didn't know what to do. So my table swaps consisted of Word notebooks. So it's another brand that makes small pocket notebooks that kind of already have kind of these pre-built somewhat bullets inside of it. They have their own system. I love using them. And so I had a bunch here. So I put those inside of there. I had to give fountain pens. So of course I gave some of the Platinum Preppies, and also Zebra has their disposable fountain pens. So I thought that was like a easy entry for anybody else. And then I also just had like some stickers, sticker sheets, and I don't remember what else, but I put a bunch of other like just fun stuff. Pens, I think I put in there 2 regular ones just because I wanted to be a part of it. So everyone at my table got a bag. Other people had stuff on the tables, and then some were giving them. I was on such a time crunch though, because I had to be at the airport by like 10 o'clock, and this was at 8, and I was just like determined to do that. But what about you? Because you got there a little bit later, I think, after I had already left, right?
You got there a little bit later. Meanwhile, I was just like the alarm went off at 6:20 or something like that, because I'm like, okay, yeah, need to like get up, get showered, get downstairs and whatever. You want to see Mark before he goes? Like, let's do that. The alarm went off. I'm like, not today, Satan. Like, absolutely was not having a bar of it. So I didn't actually end up getting out of bed until 11.
Oh my
which
goodness.
Part of me feels a little bit guilty about, because like if you think about it in terms of like ticket price and like, paying to be there and stuff like that, it's like, Jess, you're literally like throwing away money type thing. I did exactly the same thing with Disney last year. Like we paid for 3 days at Disney. I got after the second day. I'm like, you know what? I'm not having fun. I'm not going to go outside and not enjoy myself. I don't really give a toss if I paid that money. That's not to say I wasn't having fun, but I just needed my sleep. We got to bed at 2 a.m. And of course, given the time difference, I'm like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to call my mother. So I called my mom and like talked with her on the phone for half an hour. So like now it's 2:30 a.m. I'm like, oh, well, now's a good time to call Vogel. So I called him. So I didn't end up getting to like sleep until 3 a.m. ish, or probably later than that.
Oh my gosh. You had a much later night than I did. I'm an old lady compared to you.
I was just not having any kind of an early morning. So I was thinking about, I'm like, you could get up now and be a zombie person for the rest of the day, or you could just take the sleep that you so obviously need and get up at a time that is more Jess appropriate. So yeah, I didn't get out of bed until 11, so I completely missed you leaving.
It's okay.
In theory, you should have like already been like halfway onto a plane by that point.
It was so a mess. So my biggest fears, and I talked about this right at the beginning, it was all prep to get you here. My biggest travel fears are missing a flight or having a flight be canceled. I didn't miss my flight. I get to the airport, get through everything because I'm so nervous I'm going to miss my flight. I get to the area you have to sit in. I'm earlier than I need to be there, and my phone dings, and it's like, your flight has been delayed like 30 minutes. And it was storming that day. Don't get me wrong. It was thunder, lightning, bad rain. I didn't know that Texas floods. I actually found that out while I was in my Uber getting to the airport as we were literally driving across. The water was up to the door, like in the car that I was in. I was a little scared. So I'm like, okay, bad weather. Gets delayed again. Next thing you know, it's like 11 o'clock. And then they're like, okay, we're going to start boarding now. We're just waiting for the attendees. We all stand up. We have our bags. We're waiting in line. And it flashes canceled across every American flight in the corridor. I was not excited about this, but I felt worse for the people next to me who were traveling to Cabo who just had their plane flight canceled. The guy that's behind the desk, I don't even know where he went. He hid in some dark corner by himself in a secret door because we had to stand in, no lie, just a 2-mile long line to get to the help desk counter to rebook your flight. So I'm on the phone with my wife. She's trying to do stuff, all this stuff. Long story short, I get a flight on a different airline. I have 40 minutes to get to this other airport. It takes 30 minutes to get there. Luckily, when I got there, that was also delayed only once, but eventually got on my plane and I got home at midnight. So I was at the airport or airports from 9 a.m. until I got home at our airport at midnight. I was supposed to go to a show with my wife. That's why I took an early flight out. We were supposed to be there at 7, and I didn't even get on a flight until 8 o'clock. It was crazy. But while I was having that stress, you were waking up at 11, but you still got to enjoy the rest of Go Wild. So what happened kind of the rest of that day while I was having the worst day of my traveling life?
Oh, well, see, my day was great. I woke up at 11. My sink was working. Yes, thank you. So actually got to enjoy my time in the bathroom without worrying about having to spit into the toilet. Good times. So in terms of my table mate gifts, last year I'd given away Archer and Olive product because I'd kind of like shopped their Black Friday sale and gotten a whole bunch of goodies at a super, super discounted price. This time around, I decided to do some work with Typhosi, and I gave everybody a Typhosi notebook. And so they asked me like, okay, well, for the notebooks, like, which colors do you want? And I'm like, well, the official colors are like kind of purple, blue, and pink. So anything like that. So they gave me 3 of each of those colors.
Oh, nice.
Lovely notebook. So I was like, this is great. This is going to be a really good gift, I think. So I lugged my box of notebooks downstairs, and like, there are only 9 notebooks, but they're bloody heavy. Kind of got that in my like arms coming into the sessions so very late, like 11:30ish. So I missed like everything that happened in the morning. I missed the founders panel. There was like a planner challenge that I missed. I missed Jerica's session, which is probably the one that I'm most sad about because that would have been really cool to see.
Oh no.
I know.
I was sad about that too because she does the washi tape art that just blows my mind. I was messaging her afterwards and I was like, do you have the templates? Lord knows I have enough washi tape for an entire gallery of washi tape art, but it looks so cool. And everyone who was sharing stuff online, I was like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it too. So hopefully she can send me a template because that was really cool.
Yeah, and they gave away like a bunch of rolls of to make the washi tape art, obviously. They gave away a bunch of rolls of the Simply Gilded tape. So I was like, would have been really cool to see that. I'm like, Jessica, you don't need more tape. Like, you're going to be okay. But I feel like I missed out. But it was by my own choices, so I have nobody to blame but myself. That was a bit of a shame to miss out on. That was probably the one that I would have liked to have seen the most. But the ones that I was there for were the Post Secret Live, which was effectively the same presentation that we got last year, which I wasn't necessarily sad about. Like, I still thought it was a good presentation. It's good to hear about the secrets, and I think that Frank is a really good presenter. I will say it was kind of nice because I feel like personally, I was in a less fragile state this year than I was last year when I went, because prior to the conference, I'd gotten some like kind of upsetting news that was kind of touched on during the presentation.
Hmm.
So this time around, I had like a bit of a time removal from that, which was kind of nice. But it was still like, looking around, you can see not a dry eye in the house. Like some people I know specifically for their table mate gifts had bought packs of tissues. I'm like, that was a sensible idea. So you see those tables like dabbing their eyes while the rest of us are just like snotting all over our sleeves. It's cool.
When I was following online, I saw a lot of people, they were like, had their tissue box out, they're like getting ready for the next presentation. And I'm thinking, Go Wild is about like happiness and like things like that. Like, what in the world? So, can I ask you this? Because I wasn't there and I wasn't there last year. Like, what secrets are being shared that like people are anticipating getting that upset about? Like, is it a lot of like deep, dark, private, like insecurities and things like that?
I think it's like just well, if you're thinking about like secrets that you don't tell anyone, like the ones that you very much keep to yourself, right? And to hear those kind of things voiced from other people in public, like it very much strikes a chord with a lot of us. Like I'm trying to think of some of the ones that they shared. Maybe my mind has just like blocked it out because it was too much emotional damage. There was one with like a picture that somebody had taken of like a door, and there was a hole like where somebody's fist had like gone through the door type of
Oh,
a thing. And it's like this is like what my mom did when she was angry at me type thing. So you have that
okay.
kind of stuff. But then you also have other ones where it's like every time my boyfriend and I have a fight, I like put his toothbrush in the toilet kind of a thing or something like that. So there's like a range of secrets, right? There are ones that are kind of like, hugely emotionally charged in terms of like violence against people or deep rooted insecurities, like you've said, or stuff about like assaults, crimes, whatever else.
Gotcha.
And then there's also the more kind of like lighthearted secrets where they're like still secrets, you don't really want to tell people them. He said that the most common secret he gets is that like I pee in the shower type thing. And I'm like, people need to keep that a secret, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's such a weird thing. I thought everyone just did that.
Yeah, just do that, right? But it's interesting to hear his presentation. It's always kind of like it's quite good in the sense that like I think he paces things very well and he gives good balance between those more emotionally charged ones and the ones that are a little bit more humorous, a little bit more funny. But the thing that kind of gets me is that at the end of the session, they did this last year and they cut back on it this year. There's an opportunity for people to kind of ask questions, kind of, but it ends up being more of a time where people continue to share their secrets, but it's not necessarily done in the same way that he's doing his. Like when he's doing his presentation, obviously it's very thought out. It's, paced in such a way so that we have the highs and the lows. It's not just like a trauma dump kind of a thing.
Sure.
Whereas when you've got the people who are coming up at the end to share their secrets, like this is not me saying that they don't deserve to have their secrets shared. That is fine. Like that's the purpose of post secret, but it feels very different when it's coming like from the mouths of the people who are wanting to share those secrets in a way that's a little bit more, what's the word? I'm trying to say unfiltered. It's not quite what I mean. I think what I kind of mean is like unregulated. Obviously, like when he's giving his presentation, he's like cherry picked and selected ones that he thinks are going to be like appropriate for the audience. They don't delve into a territory that's like too dark or too deep, but you don't necessarily get that when you're having people share theirs like in the time and place. I found last year as well, part of it that made me feel kind of uncomfortable was that it felt very like exploitive kind of a thing, because you'd have people sharing these secrets, like really opening up and like tears streaming down your face kind of a thing. And then the next moment there'd be a camera in their face taking
Oh,
a piece of footage for their promo videos and stuff, which we didn't get that this year, which I did appreciate. Like the time for the share kind of session was a lot shorter, so we didn't have as much. It didn't get to that kind of very dark place, I suppose. Like some of the secrets that were shared were still very kind of like emotionally charged and dark, I suppose, but it didn't feel the same.
and they're not able to like filter those out the way you would if you got them in a different way. If someone sent them all in, you had someone probably combing through them, like you said, to be able to like have those ups and downs. So there's no, I doubt the person with the microphone is like, hey, whisper your secret into my ear and I'll let you know whether or not it's okay to share that. It's just, you're just kind of opening up for anything. So that is probably a little dangerous, I feel like, in a way, like that you don't know, again, if it's going to go super dark. I remember we were talking with Haley during it, and she said last year there was a session where someone was essentially giving out like psychiatric help or therapy help or something. And her, who literally has a degree in that, was like, this is not okay for you to do that. It kind of maybe the same kind of thing here a little bit, where it's like, this maybe you don't know how that's going to trigger someone else, like there's no way to kind of know when you just open up to the floor where you're supposed to be asking a question. Instead, you are, like you kind of said, like trauma dumping on a room of 1,400 people that maybe aren't ready for that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I really appreciated that this time around with the sessions that we had, I didn't get that kind of like almost ick feeling from some of the sessions. Like, not to say that everything needs to be lighthearted and happy and merry-go fun type of a thing, but if I'm coming to a planner conference, I'm not coming for that. But having said that, I did really like Post Secret. I thought that his presentation was really good. I'm glad that we had a shorter session after that in terms of the Q&A. But after that, we got to have Under the Desk News, which I had like not heard of before at all.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like you would have really liked it. You should have been there for it. Like the entire time. You should have been there.
I absolutely love their work. I've seen it on TikTok. It is just the best, most like personal kind of way to get your news, and the way in which that they present it is so great, because they literally were under a desk, like giving you like their perspective on the news or what was happening, which is just such a different way to look at it. And especially during the pandemic, TikTok probably just blew up the most during that time because we all need to be entertained. So they always do a fantastic job with it. I need someone's notes. I need somebody's notes from this, because I really do feel like I missed out.
I think I barely took notes. I need to check. Okay, having said that, I didn't take as many notes this time around as I thought I was going to, because last time I did take quite a few. But I think I was just like very in the moment this time around, so I just didn't end up taking down as much. Like I just blank page after blank page. But when we got to V's, that's the one that I actually took the most for this time. So it's like, yeah, show people the person behind the product. A lot of the time is that idea of making a personal connection with your audience and stuff. People will cheer for you on the way up, which I really appreciated, because I think a lot of the time I am apprehensive to share about my successes because I don't want them to come off as like braggy in a way. And I think it's the same reason why, like, when we were meeting people in person and they'd be like, oh, hey, I think I know you from somewhere. Like, I still feel awkward to be like, maybe you know me from YouTube because I have a channel kind of thing. Like, so that was kind of nice.
I needed that advice. It's exactly when I've talked about being sponsored by Zebra. Like, well, I get that way because I do. I feel awkward about it, because you're supposed to. I'm very proud. It was amazing. And I'm so thankful that like we have other people that hype us up, because we need that sometimes. It's like that. I find it to be funny with self-deprecation. Like I use that as a form of joking around because it's fun when you can make fun of yourself, right? That is a great piece of advice to think about. And also that people are going to cheer for you on your way up. Like we just talked about the community and competition in the last podcast, right? Like that's absolutely right. I don't think anyone has ever been like, screw you for doing well. They're always like, yes, it's amazing. Keep going. Like you need that in your life.
And if they think it, they usually keep it to themselves. So it's like, does it really matter? Another one that they said was, nobody should love you like you love you, even if you have to lie. Look in the mirror and invoke the delusion.
Yes.
I loved it. I was just like, oh, I need that. I need more of that. But no, this was a really just like valuable session, I think, for content creators in particular, because it was kind of about that and about how you like give audiences things to kind of like expect through your content and build that up and stuff. So I thought it was really valuable. I think that you would have gotten value out of it. But like I said, literally for the entire day when we were getting your messages like, yep, still in the airport. Yep, everything's delayed. Yep, going to another airport. I'm like, he should have just come back. I would have given up when the water was on the road. Be like, nope, can't do it. Stars, not today.
Oh, I really wish. I really thought I was going to make it home in time for the show, but I did not. So the last piece of thing that happened, which on the inside of me, I'm happy that I didn't go to the pajama party, because I still don't know what I would have worn, because everyone had on a pajama set and I don't have that. But also, I don't know how close y'all were together, because so many people after Go Wild were posting like how sick they were, that they had gotten the Go Wild crud. And the only thing I could think about is y'all were just way too close at the pajama party.
I thought it was great. Also, to your point, you don't have to wear pajamas. Like last year I didn't, but then I got FOMO and this year I bought pajamas, or at least pajama bottoms. I still wore the classic black.
And you know me, you're literally telling me, Mark, you don't have to buy table gifts. And I'm like, no, I have to buy table gifts. I would have had to have found a a pajama set.
The number of people you told at Go Wild, like, oh, she said I had to. I'm like, I didn't say shit. Like, why are you throwing me under the bus? Like, that's me under the tires.
That is that self-deprecating like deflection where I'm happy that I'm doing it, but I have to like offload it somewhere else to act like I'm not as cool as I think I want to be.
I completely understand it, but I was like, snake in the grass. Oh my gosh.
I just need to look in the mirror and I need to accept the delusion. Mark, you are awesome. You're great. You wanted to bring all those table gifts. Just didn't tell you had to. You wanted to do that.
And you should have been at Plan Jammer, even if you didn't have pajamas. It was so much fun. I think, okay, if we're thinking about like, was it worth it kind of a thing? And this probably just shows my bad relationship with alcohol, I swear. But this is where you make your money back because the drinks are free.
Oh, there you go. That's why everyone gets so wasted and sick, is because they're like, I'm getting my $600 worth.
Yep, and I'm going to get it in shots. Okay, maybe not. But the drinks were great. But I managed to get in pretty early to the Plain Jammer party, which was good because it was still pissing down with rain. So we had to like go across the road to the Texas Live venue, and the Sky Bridge was out because I think it had a leak or something. So we all had to like walk across in the rain or whatever. So I was like, okay, I don't want to stand in the rain. I'm just going to go over there and I'm going to see if it's open. So we ended up arriving like 5-10 minutes before doors were officially supposed to open, and nobody was there. Because we'd literally gotten a message in the app being like, don't come across. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to go across. I'll just stand nearby type thing. But yeah, nobody was there. Stood in line, which was like just me and Sarah from Heart Breathings. We got in first. We got our little picture at the Happy Planner booth, which was really fun. They had the buffet for like, you know, food, eaty bits. I think they had pizza upstairs as well. We didn't end up going upstairs though. And then of course the free drinks. So stand at the bar, grab the drinks. The line moved much faster than it did at the welcome party because you didn't have to line up twice. You didn't have to line up for a ticket and then for a beverage. So that was really good. We ended up just like hanging out at one of the tables there for pretty much the entire night, just like sitting down, having our drinks, having some good yarns, dancing along to the music, that kind of thing, like mostly in place more than anything else. But it was just a really nice time to hang out with people before most people ended up leaving the next day.
I mean, all the pictures I saw online, I definitely had FOMO, right? I definitely think it looked really cool. Everyone just looked like they had such a fun time. Like the aerial shots that they were taking of the whole floor, I was just like, oh my gosh, like especially being in the hotel in those big ballrooms. And again, while it looked very packed then, it literally was like the entire conference and like half the amount of space, but it just looked like a fantastic time. I definitely got a little bit jealous, you know, when I was seeing the groups of you all taking pictures and you replaced me with other people, you know. No, it was no, it was so much fun that I was having vicariously through the pictures, just thinking, damn it, like I missed out on this. I would have found any pajama set just to be able to attend.
He says no, but he literally messaged the group chat like, wow, way to replace me, sad face emoji. Like, and then Jerica just like took one of your old like selfies or whatever and just like stuck you in as like one of those little Instagram stickers, like, here, I fixed it. And so I sent it back being like, here, I fixed it, and like cropped you out. We were having a very good time.
Jess always the one to bring me down a notch. That's the other theme. Anytime anybody talked to me or said they followed me or had a conversation with me, at one point you all closed the circle so I couldn't get back in after I had a conversation. And literally it was like, we just got to knock you down a few pegs, Mark. We didn't think your head would fit through the space.
We were 3 drinks deep though. You can't be too mean to us.
True. But let's go ahead and wrap up with kind of your final thoughts around, was this worth it financially, but also from an experience standpoint?
Oh gosh. Okay, so 6,000, what was it? 6,692 New Zealand or 3,942 US. Was my trip worth it? Yes, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't like it to be cheaper.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't blame you.
You know, I had an amazing time. Like, it was, I think going into it with the mindset of like, you're really here just to hang out with your people more than like kind of like get takeaways from the conference. Cause like the conference is a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. And the sessions can be really good. They can be really impactful, like we talked about, but actually just getting to hang out with my planner people and see them in person and just get to enjoy their company for an entire 3 days. That was the most valuable part. And I remember waking up on the Sunday after everybody had pretty much left except for Haley, who was zonked. So I was like, go have a nap in my room. But anyway, and just sitting there and being like, everybody's gone, and I'm just like so sad because I didn't want to travel the first day after the conference. I'm like, no, we're going to give yourself like a day to kind of get over the conference so that you can kind of like work yourself up for 24 hours of travel. So I ended up traveling on the Monday,
Mm.
but sitting there when everybody else had kind of filtered out and just like still kind of buzzing from the enjoyment that I had had and like the enthusiasm and whatever, but everybody being off on their planes already home. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to see you guys again until like next year at the earliest.
Yeah, I definitely get that.
What do you reckon? Was it worth it for you?
I mean, it was way worth it for me. I mean, I just had to pay for my own food and to get around. No, it was definitely worth it for me. When I think about like what I pay to travel to do that, I feel like it might be a little difficult because I'm leaving my family, for an extended period of time, essentially for a conference that is about planners. And not to say that anyone like looks down on it, but it's not um probably seen as like a highly educational type of thing. So like my goal moving forward will be to always find a way to maybe be sponsored or to get in there in some way. I mean, I would love to speak on the big stage, like as whether it's content creation or something else, to go. I think it definitely depends on where it is. I feel vocal on his thing of like, no shade towards you, Texas, but like, you don't really got a lot for me. So I feel like it would have to be in a space also that I would really want to travel to, where maybe my family could come, right? It could be like a family thing, and I go to the conference during the day, and then they go and explore the city or wherever it might be and kind of make it a bigger family trip. From an experience standpoint, I think it is priceless to be able to actually meet your planner pals face to face, people a lot of the times that you never get to meet, to be able to be in the presence of so many great speakers and other people in that space, to be able to sit down and talk to people who are in the same mindset at you, who love planning, that love stationery, that don't roll their eyes when you talk about your favorite pen, but instead tell you how many more pens you need to buy or should be buying. Like that's the kind of energy that's kind of going on there. That's really amazing. And for me, it was also awesome just from a networking standpoint, being able to meet other creators that I've seen online. You don't get that a lot. And I think having that face-to-face conversation first makes it easier to have that online conversation afterwards, versus if you go into that just like cold calling in a DM, like, hey, I'd really love to learn more about being a content creator. It feels a bit different when you're just sending someone that blank message, no face, versus sitting down with somebody and having a little bit more of an intentional, deep conversation. I was talking about the whole time, like, I would love for this podcast to be there next year. I was joking, like in my stories already. I was like, we need to get the Planner Pals podcast there next year, because at that point, right, we'll have been a podcast for an entire year. More people hopefully will continue to listen to us and watch us. And, if there's any brands out there that want to sponsor us next year, let us know. I'm going to be hitting y'all up anyway in a few months. No, it would just be super fun, I think, to be there again. But how cool would it be just for us to go as the podcast?
Yeah, it would be like something I'd really like to do would be kind of like what I'm going to say is like an on the go type podcast where we got to have maybe a bunch of community members who we got to interview about like something related to their planning system or something. So I'm thinking kind of very much in terms of like share like an essential part, or what's like one thing you've learned about yourself through planning, or like something like that, and get like a whole bunch of little snippets from a bunch of people that we get to talk to, like whether they be like, content creators like us who people kind of already know, or just like, people who are community members. I think that would be really cool. I wouldn't mind going as a podcast. I feel like we almost did, like the number of people who ran up to us when we were together, and they're just like, oh my God, I need a picture with like both of you together because you guys are the podcast unit. I was like, oh, this feels special. So that was very sweet. The biggest thing that this probably kind of like spurred me into is like, I want to just plan my own planning retreat now. Like, this is the thing, is like one of the ticket prices being like one of the biggest pieces of my expense. I'm like, well, what if I just plan my own one and I have my own planning retreat where we all kind of come together and have like a planning weekend? That would be really fun.
That would be really cool. You know what? Let's dream it up. Let's dream it up real big with the community. Let's use that as our question of the week.
Alrighty, team. So if you were to plan a retreat, plan a conference, something like that, what would you want to be included? Like, what would you kind of expect from that type of experience? What would you really love there to kind of be involved with it? We're thinking places, we're thinking swag, we're thinking whatever else. Let us know either in the comments here on YouTube, or you can let us know at plannerpalspodcast@gmail.com. or hit us up on Instagram at Planner Powers Podcast. We'd love to hear about what you would expect in that kind of experience. I think for me, I would want it to be like not as big as Big like Go Wild. That seems like a little bit too big, a little too scary. Maybe something kind of like close knit and chill, like 20 people or something. I want to go somewhere that's warm but not too warm.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think that's a good idea. I think for me, I would want a lot more of me doing. So I would want to go to a conference where I could bring my stationery with me and then I could learn how to do a lot of that. So essentially like the crop, but on steroids, where like every single session is about learning a new skill, or you could sign up for different skills depending. I think mine would fall more into like the doing space versus just listening to people speak. So it would be a lot of action, a lot of stationery, a lot of exploration. That's what I would want to do.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Like a whole bunch of different workshops and like even if it's like a pick and choose model type thing, that would be a lot of fun. But we want to hear from you. We want to know what you guys would be interested in having in your ideal planner retreat conference type thing. In our next episode though, we are going to be talking about theft in the planner community. Not so much in terms of stealing the center table decorations at Go Wild, but more so in the art theft sense.
Yeah, there's a big conversation here, both from individuals that do that, but also companies and other accounts that do this. Like they literally make accounts out of art theft. And so we're going to be talking about kind of the morality behind that. Is it okay to do that? Should you be giving credit or should you just be screenshotting something off the internet? There's a lot to go into there. We're looking forward to talking to you about that all. And as always, Planner Pals, thank you so much for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you next time.